right, good morning. So y'all have to be a little louder today because we have a fewer folks in the room. So, good morning. And our Zoom folks, they can't shout out, but I would suggest that it's a great time for you to say good morning to each other. So we have, I think, about somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 folks that we are live streaming this for. So shout out to the folks who are joining us from afar. Woohoo! Thank you so much. My name is Kristi Wellington Baker, and I'm the director of the Student Success Center at the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges and the lead for Guided Pathways at the State Board. So thank you all for making the trek in this terrible weather, for joining us and being here. Okay, so for the terribly predicted weather, right? Okay. Really thrilled to have you all here and appreciate your time. I know every one of you gave up things to be here on your campuses. This is a difficult time to be away from campuses, so thank you, thank you, thank you. I do have some additional special thank yous that I would like to shout out. First of all, I do believe that we have one college who has the largest team here physically. Bates College, stand up. Way to go, Bates. Thank you so much. All right, and then we have instrumental partners who have joined us in the evolution of this work. College Spark Washington. Shout out Heather, Rachel, Bob, and Dina. Thank you so much. Their historic investment is actually what launched this work. And without their support and their accountability and their continuing to press into spaces, we would not be where we are at today. So thank you so much. JFF, Jobs for the Future, Lexi Waugh, and we'll have some other folks, Rachel Pleasance McDonald and Stacy Klassen will be joining us. They too made a historic investment at the beginning of this era of Student Success Center time. So thank you so much. And SBCTC leadership team. Shout out to Dr. Carly Schiffner and all the folks from the State Board who are joining us. Thank you so much again for making the trek. And Diane Troyer and the coaching team. And specifically, I want to give a really warm Washington welcome to Dr. Mary Spilty, who is in the house. Thank you so much for joining us and for being willing to help partner in this work. Appreciate it. And then we have some new collaborators up in the front. The Ed Design Lab team, who will be walking us through a wonderful exercise today. Thank you so much for making the trek out from all the places you made the trek out from. Last but not least, I am super excited to have folks from NLearn and University of Washington, Zoran and John. Thank you for coming across the ferry. Appreciate it. Last but not least, Lexi Swanson, raise your hand, has made all of this really possible. She has worked tirelessly to set things up to make this a functional and fabulous event in spite of 4,322 emails in the last 28 hours about the weather. So, thank you to Lexi for making sure we had an online streaming option for our friends who were not able to be with us, and for making sure everything else, including hotels and space, is beautiful. And thank you, Lexi. Appreciate that. All right. Last but not least, one of the things that we have created as a practice at the State Board is that we are taking a step toward honoring the truth and achieving healing and reconciliation. So we open our gatherings by acknowledging the traditional native lands on which we stand. As the brilliant Tanya Powers from Highline College reminds us all, such statements only become truly meaningful when coupled with authentic relationship and sustained commitment, which we are all called on to build by moving words into actions that fully embody a commitment to Indigenous rights and cultural equity. As part of our collective efforts to interrupt structural power dynamics throughout our time together, we are fortunate to have Dr. Betsy Hasegawa here with us today to provide our land acknowledgement. Please join me in welcoming her.
Okay, good morning. Inankarapte, my name is Betsy Hasegawa. I use she, her, and hers, and I'm Japanese and Ainu heritage, and I'm at South Seattle College. I'm the Associate Vice President for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And, how many folks do land acknowledgements as a regular practice at your college? Okay. Yeah. Okay, this is good for us to see because it's not just here. It's kind of this is a national movement or initiative that's going on, and it's a lot about really placing ourselves in the history, not just of our industry in education, but also in the history of the land and in the history of the people who have cultivated and cared for the land since as folks say in Indian country, since time immemorial. And so the practice that we're trying to develop and encourage is to actually really think about what's a real relationship that we have with both the Native people here and the Native like I am Ainu heritage, the first people of Japan, and in Japan we're considered a museum people. You know, a lot of times when Japanese people meet me, they'll say, oh, I didn't know there's still any Ainu existed. You're the first person I've ever met who's Ainu. And it's kind of like that sort of thing that we're still here and Native folks are still here. And part of the learning that we can have from them is about the relationship is with the land. Increasingly, a lot of indigenous communities are doing more land-based or place-based education, so it's kind of learning about what can we know about this place that we are, and what are the lessons we can incorporate from like the watersheds and all that sort of stuff. So that's my long way of saying a piece of it. But the other thing is that for us to acknowledge that the land that we are on is not land that came to us. That there's history here, and sometimes the history includes some wounding parts, so that there's some healing we also need to do. And part of it is by saying that we are partnering with the First People and acknowledging that the city of Vancouver, BC is one of the only places that's saying we acknowledge that we are on unceded territory. We are on land that we do not have ownership of in a way that was fairly negotiated with the people who first inhabited it. So that as some of the settlers came from other places, we came with different ideas about what it meant to have a relationship with land, and that ownership was not necessarily a concept. Definitely territory and uses of the land, but it was like, sure, you can come hunt here, but then it's like, okay, now we own it and you have to leave, and that's kind of a different sort of relationship. So this is all ways of starting to build that healing in. So I'm going to do a land acknowledgement that's based on the Duwamish people's acknowledgement, and it's for the lands that we're on. So I'm going to say that we acknowledge land on which we sit and which we occupy as we begin our meetings today. So we're on the traditional lands of the Suquamish tribe and the Fort Gamble Sklallam tribe. And we honor the First People, the original caretakers of these lands, water, air, and all living things here, and we thank and honor their present-day descendants as well. So we want to honor the folks. And should I just roll into the next piece? Okay. And then the other thing that I'm also going to be doing is talking a little bit about that we have a special, I think it's a kind of a special feature. I'm looking at Bob and Dina of what we're doing here is that we have this change facilitator role that we've been using with the Guided Pathways work for a couple years now, and it's one of those Jan Yoshiwara brilliant experiment sort of things. Like she was like, well, we need to really shift away, let people think about how do not just what we're doing, but how we're doing it. And so I have a background in organizational behavior, and she's like, what can you do? What can we come up with that? So what we are is we're kind of like process consultants. And so for going forward here, we're all going to learn about how Christy and the crew are thinking about how this is all going to work. But what we have been doing with the cohort colleges is that we, as change facilitators, we sit in with the groups, and our role there is not as content experts. We're not there as people who are there to fix you, and we're not the traditional facilitators writing notes, and but we're there really to hold the work. We're acting as containers, as Sharon Parks talks about. We're containers to hold the particular kind of work that we're doing, that folks are doing, and so we won't be answering questions and things like that, but we're kind of helping to hold that. But I would love for the folks to come. And the other thing is that we are a very diminished group today, partly weather, but also attrition. And so we're going to be contacting colleges that we've been identifying folks that we would like to build up our team to accommodate all the colleges now. So we're going to be contacting you. Just know that we've been looking at folks, and we're pooling information. So we're going to be expanding our team. But today we have 3 people here, and I'd like them to come up and introduce themselves. Tomorrow we're going to have another person, maybe 2 more. So it's kind of like that. And what I'll say is that what we do is Erin, come on up. So our role in these meetings is to attend to the group process by listening, observing, and offering feedback as needed. Our focus will not be on being active facilitators or subject matter experts, but rather will help you disrupt traditional ways of working and thinking together in a meaningful way. We will encourage you to hold racial equity and change leadership pieces of this work at the center of your conversation and thinking. So that's what we do, and it looks different every time. Okay. So I don't know if you want to. I didn't get it.
Great. Good morning. My name is Erin Barzin. I'm at South Seattle College.
Good morning. I'm Joe Holliday. I'm at the State Board.
And then there's other folks who you'll meet at some other point. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Betsy, for that. So we have a couple of things to do before we get kicking off with our keynote for the morning. So what I'd like to have folks do, as you know, we generally speaking, since February of last year, have really tried to center the work on the Guided Pathways vision and mission work. So just a reminder, the Guided Pathways vision is a system that advances racial, social, and economic justice by achieving equitable student aspiration, access, economic progress, and goal attainment. So we have a pretty big vision, right? That everybody who comes to us, that we engage with, that our communities are, that we have a way to serve them that is meaningful to them and that provides for them, with them, a mechanism for achieving those things. So just a reminder of where we're at. So we're going to do a quick social identity exercise. So you have 12 seconds to pair up with someone at your table. You ready? Find your elbow partner, they call it. All right. So you will each have 60 seconds. Please introduce yourself to them, whether you know them or not, as you would introduce yourself to them is if you did not know them. So you have 60 seconds. Partner 1, introduce yourself to your partner. All right. You have officially been introduced to your elbow partner, I hope, at this point. So raise your hand if part of your introduction included your vocation. That's not that weird. That is a very dominant culture approach to introduction. So if you think about the ways that we approach this work and the ways that we come into this space differently, it's really important to center it in not our own experience. It's really important as we think about designing a system that is ready to work in partnership with our communities and with every community, that we think about that intentionally. And that as we go through our daily work, we think about that like, I wonder about that. Wonder if that's about me or if that's about the system or if that's actually just something I need to learn more about. As we think about this work and moving forward into scaling across our state and really being intentional about designing a system that's ready for everyone, we have to be cognizant of our own space and have to be cognizant of our own power and our own privilege.